that. I've got.
The screen. I think you should use that too.
Hmm? All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll. Okay, I think I can make it work. I'll do it for the next podcast.
That's what you said last time.
No, I did not, sir.
Yeah, you did. I didn't remember very clearly, but that's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has those days, but not one man. Olivier Giroud. What a goal! I've been watching it over and over again. 6 goals were scored today, and that's
Yeah.
the only goal I can watch. That is the only goal that makes me go, ah, football heritage.
Wait, I'm just pulling up the stats for the top scorers Champions League because I know he's somewhere in there.
I mean, I scored 4 against Sevilla, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
What a shame.
4 against Sevilla.
That game is referred to so much every
Yeah.
time a Premier League fan wants to either diss on La Liga, diss
Mhm.
on Sevilla, or diss on Jules Koundé. They're like, oh, Koundé isn't good. You know, the
Man,
go-kart
I
scored 4 goals against him.
man, I watched Kunde and I watched Kamavinga as well. Chelsea played both of them in their group stages and they were crap.
Kamavinga 17. You know, he should be doing his schoolwork, his homework. He shouldn't be playing in Champions League football. All right, these kind
Listen,
of
I'm not listen, I'm not saying that he's bad or he's not going to be a great player. He might go on to be one of the best midfielders in the world, sure, but I'm just saying for the hype he gets right now, he's nothing that special.
don't you think a player that young, right, 17 years old, the footballing world has just pulled themselves into these ridiculous standards of comparing 17-year-olds like their next big things, right? There have been a few, like, great bops like lately, Neymar, and then Mbappe. So, but like, this is like once every 7 8 years. Not every youngster is gonna be a star like that. All right, not you can't just throw every youngster into like a top team and expect him to do really well, because they start off well and then they decline. And what's the point?
Wait, what are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say, like, the guy's 17.
Mm-hmm.
To say like, oh, he's not good, or he's not it. Like, come on, the guy's 17. We're talking about players that are still growing in height, right? That are still going through physical growing changes. Okay, this guy might just turn up next year and be a huge tank. All
Yeah,
right,
I at no
this
point did
guy.
I say that he's not going to be that. All I'm saying is, especially we've had this talk before, where the prime age of a football player is reducing. It used to be around about 30, 31. Now it's 30, 29, 28, whatever.
Yeah, 28,
The
27. We've
careers are
said, yeah.
getting shorter and shorter, like at the top level. So I'm just saying, given the hype that he's got, I haven't seen from the 2 games that I watched him play against Chelsea in the Champions League, I haven't seen where that hype has come from.
Okay, but just based on that 2 games is very unfair.
Yeah, yeah,
He's made
that's what
at,
I'm
at
saying though.
at 17. He's made his debut for the current world champions, France. Okay, that should say enough. All right, at 17, I think I just want to focus on the ridiculousness of the age at 17. Right, 17. That's half of Ronaldo's age. Okay, that's a ridiculous number. Most players, even the best in the world, right, don't gain that much attraction at 17. The fact is that the modern football has just set these ridiculous standards, these ridiculous notions that the younger, the better, and whatnot. Like, you never know. Um, there are there are countless examples in modern football where all these stars have been hyped up, and then
Yeah,
couple
no, no,
months later, a
that's
year
exactly the
later,
point I'm trying to make. That is exactly the
yeah.
point I'm trying to make. Do
I think
not
it's
hype them
yeah.
up
I
because
think
that
it's
just adds pressure onto them and then they go on to, fail or flop or whatever.
The
Just let
hype
them
is
play their
fair.
football. We'll come back in 2, 3 years, see how they're doing.
Okay, the hype. Listen, the hype is fair. Okay, if you see a promising someone who's promising, that's fine. That's all good and stuff. But where I sit, where I draw the line, all right, like you praise them, you praise their growth. It's just that giving a verdict is ridiculous. Okay, even
But I'm not giving a final verdict.
yeah,
What I'm
even
saying,
mature grown. No, but you're saying that you don't see what the hype is about, right? Based on two
yeah,
games
for his age,
for his
people
age
talk
at
to, yeah,
17.
for his age at 17, people talk about him as if he's like a top 10 midfielder in the world right now. The way
Okay,
people talk.
I don't know where you've been getting your hype from, but
Literally, you go on
easy
the
not.
timeline and
Listen,
I've seen Madrid fans on the timeline say that if they bought Camavinga, he would slot into the starting 11 straight
no,
off,
he
which
wouldn't.
is
Of course, he
I
wouldn't.
have seen that. I have
No, he
seen that
wouldn't.
opinion.
Okay, listen,
Mm.
absurd opinions.
And
Completely
that is based
disagree.
on your fan base. So I'm just saying,
Listen. There are a lot of fan base. Every fan base has certain members that they're not very proud of, especially when you're taking the London Underground. Um, but but absurd opinions like that on youngsters, right, is never a fact. Okay, we signed countless Brazilian youngsters that we thought, this guy's the next Neymar, this guy's the next Robinho, this guy's the next, I don't know, Adriano. And 6 months in, you feel like all they have is PK on skates, and a couple months later the attackers look like they're on skates themselves. All right, they can't finish from 4 yards out, they can't finish from 6 yards out, slipping while trying to make contact with the ball. So a youngster's football life changes so quickly. It just takes a couple of good games. So many people were doubting Mbappe, right? Mbappe, this guy won a damn World Cup. This guy is a world champion. He's a Champions League finalist. But just because he hadn't scored in the Champions League for over a year, I think, right? People were like, you know what? Maybe this guy, he was carried by Griezmann and Pogba and Kante, and the star-studded team, and he plays in the French league. It's League One Uber Eats, so he's not that all. And one game later, the whole world wants him. So young stars, I think it's probably the hardest place to be in the world football, except for being at the very, very top.
now we've had our talk about young stars. Let's flip the switch and talk about senior players and a certain other senior French striker tonight. My number 9, well, number 18, but number 9 because he's twice regular number 9.
He's twice the player.
It's twice your number 9.
Twice my number. Okay, that is actually true. Tammy, stay on the bench because my GOAT, the Thursday night Ronaldo 2 seasons ago, this season he's the Tuesday night Ronaldo. First has those Sevilla defenders on skates, and today Hermoso just stood there and watched as he gave the perfect assist. Ollie G rising. Oh, what a player, man. What a player. And to top it all off, Kim Jong-un has the same haircut. I mean, wow. Wow. You see the leaders of countries getting inspiration from the Thursday night Ronaldo. What a player. What a player.
Umar, don't you think the French acrobats team needs a lesson or two from the go-kart? Olivier Giroud?
F1. I'm sorry, but he's the F1. He doesn't blackmail anyone. He comes into the team and does his job. He's my striker. 0 shots on target in the World Cup, but I don't care. He does the job.
Oh, well, he was on target today, and what a beautiful way. Oh, glorious scenes to any football fan, except for probably for an Atleti fan. But let's go back a bit. What a dull game. What a dull game. I wasted my night. If it weren't for that goal, I'd be fast asleep. This would be cancelled.
Okay, like, I mean, I don't think it was a dull game in the sense
Yeah, it
it
was.
wasn't.
Don't
No,
lie. It
no,
was a dull
no, no,
game.
no, no, no. I'm not saying
For a
that. I'm
neutral, it
saying
was a dull game.
it wasn't a dull game in the sense that it wasn't boring compared to what people expected. It was exactly what you were gonna expect. Atletico on the back foot, Chelsea passing the ball around in the midfield third and not finding a final pass. We've seen that
Umar,
trend with Atletico, we've seen that trend with Chelsea, and that's exactly what happened. The ball was being played amongst Christensen, Rudiger, and Azpilicueta, and Jorginho in front of them for like 70 odd minutes. So it's exactly what you think.
uh, to quote Franz Beckenbauer, it was unwatchable. Okay,
And yet you
listen,
watch 68 minutes until the magician rose from the
I,
ground
I,
like a young wizard at Hogwarts, and just oof,
uh,
what a player,
and
man, what a
turned into a
player.
ballerina and just whirled around the ball.
Okay, no, but seriously though, Giroud today, apart from the goal, I think was very good. Even in the first half, he would get the ball and he wouldn't take more than one touch. It was either a header or a layoff or a flick towards either Mason Mount or Jorginho. And those two guys, I mean, they they were finding it very hard to find the final third pass, mainly because A, there was barely any space left for them, and B, even when there was, like I remember a corner in the first half where Jorginho came, he was completely unmarked. Um, the ball just went out for a goal kick. Like the final delivery just wasn't good enough today from either of those two. But in terms of Giroud, I think he did exactly what was expected of him. He went into every, kick or long ball, challenged for everything. Whenever he did get the ball, he laid it off, passed and moved, did his job. A very, very solid performance from the number 18.
Speaking about the final deliveries, apart from the pass, a lot of the times it felt like Chelsea did everything right, except for the pass. Um, and
Um,
would you blame that for wide players playing uh, too much towards the touchline and not getting closer to the goal, so it's a lot easier for them to make those passes? Like Callum Hudson-Odoi literally playing out the park at times. He was so wide out. I noticed that so often. Players like Marcus Alonso just being somewhat directionless, but that had less to do with tactics and more to do with,
we've seen
you
that
know,
for 5 years now.
more to do with his personal GPS system.
Oh, no pun intended.
It let's not
Let's not.
let's not talk about murder mystery, a completely different movie.
Plus, let's be honest, we don't want to say anything that we want to then later edit out, and everyone at this point is too tired to stay up late night and edit this,
we
right?
we've stopped editing. We let it
Mm,
all go through. we
yeah.
we don't edit anymore. This should be named unplugged at the end of each and every episode, because it really is. We don't edit anything out anymore.
A cappella.
Okay. Let's keep it like this. If Ali's not on the pod, nothing is being edited out, boys.
No, we're so tired at this point that even if Ali is on the pod, it's still not being edited out. uh, all right, back to the game.
Back to the game.
So
The wide players
yeah,
and the
because
mid.
did I believe Tuchel also played five at the back again, or three at the back again.
Mm.
It leaves a lot to be desired in the middle of the park. Then because in the end Chelsea are playing such a wide system, and even when coaches tend to play five at the back or three at the back, the fullbacks do tend to get closer up to the goal, right? On the left hand side, Alonso never did that today, which is so surprising. Usually he's the second striker. And Callum Hudson-Odoi, for the first 50-60 minutes, uh, didn't manage to get into the box, right? And towards the last 20 minutes after they had scored, he managed that more and more so. Do you think that had an effect on that bad creativity?
To be honest, everything that we've seen under Tuchel in the few games that he's been here, and also under Lampard for the past 6 months, has been very uninspiring in the sense that the wingers have been left out of the game. They stay out wide. They haven't come central. Like Hudson-Odoi's sole job, he's been the wing back, the big project of Tuchel. And we saw today him going directly at Lamar. At no point was he left one-on-one with Hermoso. He was left alone with Lamar on the wing out here. Alonso usually is the guy, as you say, who's the second striker, or even the first striker. Giroud plays in behind him at some time. But we saw him today on the left-hand side. I think it was more to do with Chelsea setting up against Atletico rather to their own strengths, or like rather for Tuchel to set up his team in a way that, we're the superior team. Because you know the threat that Atletico has on the counter, and given Alonso's pace, I think Correa would have had him on string. So I think he was told to stay behind. Um, the game, I guess, with Werner and Giroud central, and even Mount at times, he is usually central too. But today we saw Mount play on the right hand side as well. As you say, it was all out wide. It was nothing in the box, nothing was direct. And I don't know, I just think that it was more to do with Chelsea setting up to defend against Atletico's counter rather than go out there and play their own football. And right now Tuchel is looking like a genius because he's come away from I want to say the Wanda Metropolitano, but it was more like in Bucharest or something.
It
Um,
really was. It was like Abdullah has just mentioned. It was, you know, a home game in name only for Atletico.
Yeah, and it says that it was the first time they've lost the Champions League home match in the knockout phases. Atletico Madrid under Diego Simeone, so
Wow,
they've had
that
that.
is
Yeah,
pretty insane.
and
For the
also
first time
Giroud. Yeah,
ever
so the first in the knockouts
in
phases.
the
Yeah,
knockout stage, it's the first time that Simeone's
lost a
lost a
home game.
home game.
Yeah, Atletico, not just Simeone.
oh
Atletico,
Wow.
wow.
no, Atletico under Simeone. Sorry.
Atletico under Simeone.
Yeah,
So
Atletico.
how long has
That's
Simeone been at Atletico for?
since 2010, I believe, or 2011.
Wow.
2011.
Yeah, so he's been there for like a good 10 years at least. And that's actually, and they've played in the Champions League every single tournament since, which
Hmm.
is insane. That's an insane stat. That just goes to show how much importance the, what's it called, home stadium has been for Atleti in this time.
So do they actually officially count this record as broken? Now they've lost a home game? Because I
Funnily
think that's
enough,
unfair. That's
yeah,
kind of unfair, don't you think?
well, funnily enough, they can put an asterisk to it. You know, they can be like at what was their old stadium's name again?
Vicente Calderon.
Vicente Calderon, right? So they can be like, oh, you know, Simeone has never been beaten in Vicente Calderon plus Vanda Metro. But in other records, at if it's home and away, you know, I think it would be broken. But nowadays, people manage to pull out all sorts of records anywhere, so it doesn't really matter. You get the funniest records. You know, this guy hasn't passed the ball in this yard of the pitch in this minute ever, and you know these kind of stats only say so much. But what before I just get into Atletico's side of the game, um, it's an away goal that Chelsea have scored, uh, where Atleti did not play in their own stadium. They didn't even play in their own country. They had no fans. What do you guys think about that moving forward? Like now, this could be crucial um, going forward.
I was just thinking, how fair is it like that teams like, for example, Lazio or like Barca play at home while, for example, teams like Atleti don't get the chance to play at home because they're playing an English team, for example. Like, how fair is that? I was just thinking in terms of the long term, because like we obviously seen it, like there was no difference because Barcelona lost their game, and like there wasn't much of an advantage there, but other teams could have benefited from that. And it's kind of unfair to have half of the competition playing in a different stadium, or like playing in a neutral venue, and the other half playing home games and away games in a natural way. It might cause a little bit of like heat between fans, and fans claiming that it might be a little unjust that their team didn't get to play a home game, even if it's
Yeah,
without fans. Yeah.
I
I'm just thinking that I completely agree with the point that it's very unfair on Atletico. But I guess the other side of things could be that technically no team is playing at home because there are no fans. I mean, let's be honest, for teams like Chelsea and City, that's probably not a big deal compared to teams like Atletico or Liverpool, for example, where,
yeah,
so much of their energy is brought from the fans. But another aspect of it, I think, is that, let's use Barcelona as an example. Even if there weren't any fans, they were playing in a stadium, they've been playing for years, they're familiar with the pitch and stuff. Whereas Atletico, just like an away team, have come to a new stadium, getting familiar with like a different pitch, just like Chelsea. So it wasn't really much of an advantage at all. And I do feel for them there.
it is definitely an away match for both of those teams in that regard. So, a great proposition that has been made is that maybe it's time to scrap the away goals rule.
Away goal rule.
For games that have like that are played in a neutral
Or
venue, I
how about
think they should.
all? What? Why? Listen, there aren't going to be any fans, right? There are no fans coming in. So why are there ifs and buts? Why not just go with it that hey, last season we had a different rendition of the Champions League where we had one legged ties, right? In the knockout stages. So how is it so difficult this year that you just say, hey, because of the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects, that this year we don't take the away goals into account. It's just a normal legged tie, and if the goals are equal at the end, you go to extra time and penalties. In fact, I think that would be more interesting altogether.
That would mean potentially more games going to extra time than normal, which means more minutes for a lot of players, and more minutes and game time for teams. So more fatigue for the rest of the season. So that would be a good suggestion to make, but I don't know how many clubs would agree to that proposition in terms of
Um,
playing no away rule and how it goes.
Okay, but
just
that's
to
just like sorry, Omar, but that's just like 30 minutes more football. I know it's a risky moment, and those players are risking a lot, especially to do with injury, because their legs are fatigued and everything. Uh, but just an extra 30 minutes for one team for the whole season, I don't think it's an end of the world, right? And moreover, it's more about fairness and equal opportunity. All right. If you're talking about familiarity of surroundings and the environment that these teams get to play in, um, having a fair ground to start with would be better than playing with all these random variables. Tomorrow, any government can come and say, hey, you know what? We're not having fans. Another government can say, you know what? Stadium full. We're cured. Anyone can come in. So these are ever-changing circumstances. What would be the most consistent factor would be to get away of the for the accountability of away goals.
what that would do to games as well. And like I will talk about today's game specifically. Atletico were set up in a way where they were going to defend with 10 men for 90 minutes to not concede an away goal. If that rule hadn't existed today, you might have seen a much more open or end-to-end game compared to what we saw today, which was, as you say,
Yeah,
boring or dull. Yeah. So it would make games like a lot more interesting. But maybe another factor that they're considering whilst they're not taking this into account is the fact that as situation with COVID globally is changing so much, and first there weren't any fans, then fans came back, then they didn't come. With the Champions League last season, 2 legs, then up until the round of 16 quarterfinal, 1 leg. They don't want to change it as much, maybe, people fell in love with football like the original kind, where there are certain rules set already and they don't want to change that maybe. So they just want to keep it the way it is, and that includes this away goal rule.
Yeah, but the scrapping of these away goal rules has been called for a number of years now, right? It's not the first time. I believe since it got very popular when I think Bayern beat United on away goals in 2007.
Are you talking 2007?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think in 2007. I can't.
I don't know about that, but I remember this became a thing when Robin scored that volley from the corner, which was, I think, a bit later
3-2.
on.
That was a
Yeah,
3-2 game. Bayern at Old Trafford had won with
yeah.
that one from the corner. That was epic.
Yeah,
Oh,
which year
fun.
was that? I think that is the year I'm talking about.
I think it might have been 10 or 11. 10?
No, no, no. Maybe 2010.
I think it was 2010. I remember Owen Hargreaves playing. I
Ah,
believe.
all right, my bad. I've got my memory mixed up, but I am talking about that tie. It got very popular then too, right? It got very popular again when Madrid beat Juve on away goals as well. All right. So it comes time and time again. It pops up every now and then. And it also, you know, it's the ridiculousness of uh, club superiority as well, right? A bigger club will always have a bigger home advantage. A smaller club will always have a smaller home advantage. Okay, so let's go back to the double away game that we held. Now let's talk about Atletico Madrid.
No, they
Atletico.
played. Yeah, they played their normal game. They played their regular big game. Atletico Park the Bus football. Nothing different, but usually they're more threatful. Usually you feel like they can actually score, and they usually do snatch that early goal. But today they did not do that. Like today it was almost all Chelsea the entire game. Like I think until the first half, Atleti had almost like one shot on goal. So no, they didn't create any chances, and especially coming off the back of a draw against Levante and a loss against Levante, um, I would have expected Simeone's Atletico to come in with a different approach today, especially since it's technically still a home game and it's against Chelsea. So they would want to step up and bounce back at this time because they have a tough set of games upcoming in the league and the second leg, obviously. So they could go from top of the league, still in the Champions League, to also uh, quickly being out of the competition and barely competing for anything. So they have to wake up before the second leg. Otherwise, it's big trouble for Simeone. It's going to be another year where he ends up getting knocked out from the Champions League when he could actually have a chance because teams like Barcelona are out and the main top teams in the competition are not really unbeatable unless you're
There's
talking
still a
maybe.
leg left. Why so doom and gloom? There's still a leg left.
We'll
No,
talk
there's
about
still a
that
leg
next
left.
Tuesday.
No, 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 no. That's not gonna happen. Come on, let's be real. I'm not gonna fall for it again, man. It's
Okay,
not gonna
Again?
but
happen.
When was the last time you fell for it?
No, I overdone it lately. I did it. I do that every year. No, every time they let me down, I take a break, come back, then something happens, and I'm like,
Well,
oh, let's go again.
I think you'll have a longer break this season.
You know, and come early.
but on the note of Atletico usually getting that early lead, they almost got that today. They had one shot in the first half, but they could have had 2 goals in the opening 10 minutes. If you think about when Mendy gave the ball to Saul and that second chance for Lamar where Alonso and Rudiger just crashed into each other and Suarez took the ball.
Yeah,
They
that
could
was a
have
funny
easily been
moment.
2-0. Yeah, they could have easily been 2-0 up within 10 minutes. So it was scary stuff. The defense of Chelsea was very shaky. Atletico pressing was unreal. Like they were on you before you even had the ball. So I was very worried. But as the game progressed gradually, you could just see that Atletico don't really have that threat today, that X factor.
They had a chance early in the 14th minute when Suarez set that ball up for Lamar, who
That's
couldn't
the one
really
I'm
get to
talking
the
about.
end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very, very dangerous chance. If that went in, it could have been a different game. That was the plan for Simeone, I think. Score a
Mm,
goal in the first 15 minutes and fully park it. And I think it worked against Liverpool
yeah.
when they hosted them last time, but it didn't work this time. So I guess no plan B for Simeone after that. They just let Chelsea run the game pretty much.
Well,
Even when Mendy took that touch and Saul just got the ball, I think that was before the Suarez winning the ball and Lamar chance. Can't remember what minute it was. I think it was before that. That touch, it could have easily fallen to Saul, like, and he would have just had an open net to tap it into. 2-0 in opening 14 minutes. I mean, I think the tie is over right there. So
And they got lucky after that. Because Werner also missed the chance after that in the 15th minute. He had a chance straight after that could have also went in. So they could have been punished right there and then, but they got lucky they survived that part. And Werner also had a chance in the box where he fell in the 17th minute. In those moments, they went from could have been 2-0 up to could have been 2-0 down like
yeah.
pretty quick. So
What was really interesting, I was watching the BT Sports stream, and the commentators' difference on the two chances from Atletico and Chelsea. Like, I understand, like, you're an English channel, so,
the
there's a certain amount
xenophobia
of,
kicking in.
yeah, like, the way they were talking about those Atletico chances, the Lamar one specifically, nothing on Lamar or Suarez or the Chelsea defenders. It was all about Hudson-Odoi. Oh, he tracked back, he put Lamar off balance and he missed that chance. And then when Chelsea go the other way and Werner misses that chance from the Hudson-Odoi cross, it was all like, oh, I thought that was a goal. Why didn't he score? But, I mean, like you could see the clear difference. They're only focusing on the English player, and that's it.
This is actually a very good point that you're bringing up, and I'm so glad a English football fan, not a football fan that supports an English team that brought it up. This is
They
what you
wouldn't call
have
me
to.
English. They would call me a P word.
Uh, okay, pretty boy. That's what they would call you. Uh, but apart from that, like it's so annoying. Honestly, this is something that boils my blood. Like watching a British football telecast. This is something that they say time and time again. Like, if it's a British team playing, it's almost as if, they put in an effort to, like, degrade the other team. Or they just don't put the effort in commentating about the other team. In fact, they don't even put an effort sometimes to learn about, a full 11. If it's a team like RB Leipzig playing, who's not a top team, right? I believe in not this season, last season when they played Spurs, the first leg, right? I was watching a bit of the match, and I believe that I felt like the commentators didn't even know who these players were. This is their job, you know. This is their homework that they have to come and prepare with coming like approaching a broadcast. And like you mentioned today, them just looking at one side of the coin really reduces the football experience for us, the consumers.
that's a solid point. It's a solid point that you made. That's actually true.
And that's why our big commentary is the best.
That's true also, yeah. But there is also bias in Arabic commentary at times, so it's not all perfect.
Yeah,
We
I
don't
mean, no
understand
one's
it. We just love
okay.
the
The
screaming.
worst,
Yeah.
the worst bias. I mean, the commentator didn't even deny it. In 2011, in Madrid versus Tottenham, round of 16. The commentator, instead of saying Tottenham, he said we. And he said, by we, I mean Tottenham because they're British. It is out there. You can go YouTube it right now. In round of 16 tie, Real Madrid versus Tottenham. I believe the leg at Madrid, the first leg, the commentator would time and time again say, we should do this, we would do that. And I mean, then they should just go to the Tottenham Hotspur website. You know, why are they on BBC or Sky Sports? You know, what's the point?
I mean, the way media has like transformed here in that way, where before it's like make sure if you're a journalist or if you're entering that field, don't don't be biased, or hide whoever you're like who you support when you go in that, so you don't show that. But now it's kind of shifted to more like everyone admits who they support and who they cheer for, but it's just how you do it in terms of the balance. But I do think that in terms of commentary, like for a game especially like this, it's not just like a mainly British audience, even though it's probably a British audience most of the time watching there. So the commentator is commentating for with more bias towards that side. But I still feel like sometimes they don't do the other team justice to a point where you feel like they're cheering for the other team. It's not just, oh, it's an English team, I am more familiar with this team, so I'll give you more details here. It doesn't feel that way. It feels more like they're rooting for the team, and the other team is basically just in their way. That's it.
I mean, I just want to go over that match, right? It's not a small club that Tottenham Hotspur were playing. It was Real Madrid, you know, and
Only
the
the
game,
9 Champions Leagues at the time, right?
yeah, 9 Champions League at the time, and Tottenham lost 4-0 that leg. Uh, a small score at the time, but it really like, I'm pretty sure there might be more Real Madrid English speaking fans than Tottenham Hotspur fans in total.
You know what might be an interesting fact? If you go back like a few years, and what if you watch games at that point when David Beckham used to play for Madrid? Do you think there would have been a certain difference in the way these commentators and pundits would treat
Yes,
Real Madrid?
yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
definitely.
At that time, I would have believed that.
Owen as well.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't play much, but
Jonathan Woodgate too, or
Jonathan
is that a bit of
Woodgate.
a stretch?
I would have
He's the
believed
new
that.
manager of Bournemouth, by the way. Just
Oh wow!
putting it out there.
Congratulations, Johnny. Wish you all the success. I don't know if you can get injured as a coach, but you know, just try again. But going back at it, right? Um, the bias exists even until last year when Gareth Bale wasn't being played by Zinedine Zidane for his better judgment. Every British media outlet, no matter how big, no matter how small, was at Zidane's throat. Every question, every time that they would have the chance, every Champions League tie, every match where a British media journalist would be present, that question would be coming in. Why isn't Gareth Bale playing? These guys don't even understand, how small Gareth Bale is compared to Real Madrid. These guys don't understand this. These guys are so self-consumed by their own obsession about their pride of their own nation and whatnot. They don't understand the bigger picture, right? And then obviously a great like Zinedine Zidane, who's have learned the game and has learned like what respect in the world football means. These guys get tired of it, and now since Bale's at a English club, all that noise has disappeared.
Um, it's not just about that. I feel English players, the way they're treated in foreign countries, but even within England. Like, I'm just gonna use an example from today. After the game ended, I was on YouTube and I saw like a video of the post-match analysis on Sky. There was Jamie Carragher, there was Micah Richards, and Micah Richards was, I don't know, someone talked about Tuchel and what a good job he's done. and Micah Richards was like, saying Chelsea played well here and there, and Jamie Carragher actually called him out. He's like, less than a month ago, you were Tuchel out. You didn't like him. You were saying so many things against him, and you weren't for him. And now all of a sudden, like, what's changed? And Micah Richards, he's just sitting there. He's like, no, I didn't have anything against him. It's just the way Lampard got sacked. I didn't like that. And then Jamie Carragher told him, okay, but that had nothing to do with Tuchel. He's just come in as a manager to do his job. That had nothing to do with him, and you were against him. And he's like, no, no, there's a certain way of doing things, and they didn't do it right with Lampard. Again, within Chelsea, an English club, all the talk was about Lampard and the way he got sacked, hating on the next manager that comes in, a German, rather than,
Yeah.
praising him for like the great job that he's done. Chelsea are still undefeated under him, so
I mean, you really just got to feel for Tuchel. Like, the guy's already starting behind compared to everyone else, right? Because winning the fans over sometimes can be very, very difficult for a coach. I'm pretty sure the last 5 Barcelona managers feel that way. At big clubs, this can be a big problem, especially at a club where the rotation of managers is, very frequent, like at Chelsea. And this also like points out, and I'm gonna go a little off topic here, but I think it really chimes in very well. It also links with somewhat of a hidden racist agenda, all right? Because something that I read this week was about what Clarence Seedorf said. He said, I've played, I've played in Madrid, I've played in Milan, I have this many Champions League, I've played this many games, I've coached like one of the greatest Serie A clubs of all time, and now I'm back in Holland, and no one wants to give me a job. No one wants to give me a job at any capacity whatsoever. And, you just got to start thinking about this. If the upper tier of all these managing directors and whatnot have their own personal preferences, every other manager that's not in their cutout is going to start from a major disadvantage.
I think Seedorf is not the only manager who's talked about that. I think recently Patrick Vieira, and just a
Yeah.
little while before that, I think it was Hasselbank. I might be wrong. It was an English coach who spoke about the lack of opportunities like people of color, coaches of color get in management. And even, for example, if you look in the Premier League or La Liga right now or Bundesliga, the some of the best players in the world over the years have been people of color. I mean, and right now in terms of coaching, none of them are given an opportunity. So does that fault lie within the club, their, their, I guess their characterization of people, or who's to blame for that?
I mean, it's very easy to say that yes, it's systematic, right? But then also, all of the proofs lie there, you know, like you mentioned. If some of the greatest players are, people of color, then why is there not a continuation? Especially when they've proven themselves, right? Seedorf was not a bad manager at Milan. Milan is not a small club. Even their recent successes might not be what they show, right? Uh, he he should have easily have gotten anything and a job in Holland in Eredivisie, right? It should really have mattered on that.
Mhm. So just going back on the Chelsea Atletico game, what do you think went wrong for Atletico?
For me, it was the falling around.
You
For me,
know,
it
you know,
was
you
it
know,
was the extra. Like, I mean, I know. I like listen. When Suarez does it against a neutral team, it can be very, very entertaining. And today it was like it's not affecting me. If he does it against Madrid, my blood's boiling. I'm probably very, very pissed off. But today it was just comedy. Today it was Mr. Bean Volume 28. Just seeing him jump around. Sometimes just like Abdullah mentioned, a little bit of air refreshener, and Suarez is on the floor. It's funny to watch. But in terms of tactically, I think like we've mentioned before, the whole idea of it being a home game, how they were set up to start with. They've been actually a very, very good attacking side in the league this season. They have the players now. They've signed an excellent player in Suarez, who has like more capability than might I say any Chelsea player in attack. And for Diego
The
Simeone
disrespect
to
to
have
Olivier
just
King
gone.
Giroud. Come on, man. World
Yeah,
Cup winner.
but just pull up the records. Yeah, but has Oliver Giroud ever saved a penalty in a
Oh,
World Cup?
that's true. That's
I
true.
don't think so. Has Oliver Giroud ever bid on a player?
Um,
Going back,
there
going
was a
back.
moment. No, wait, sorry. Before you talk further, I just want to go back to Suarez. There was a moment in the 85th minute, around or sometime around that, where he got into that scrap with Rudiger, and Rudiger's
Yeah,
hand went towards Suarez's neck, and I was
yeah.
shitting myself at that point. I'm
You
thinking,
never know when it
Rudiger,
goes.
please don't do something stupid. Please don't even give him the opportunity to do something stupid. And it's moments like these where I feel like Chelsea have really let themselves down. I mean, if Suarez had gone down there, honestly, I think there was enough contact for Suarez, for a player like Suarez to go down and win himself like a penalty or get like a sending off there. So,
I think that would have been sending off since
yeah,
the ball was out of play.
the ball was out of play,
Uh,
his hands on his neck. I mean,
yeah.
and it's Luis
Like and
Suarez.
with
He's gone
VAR,
down for like a lot less. He's gone down for biting Ivanovic. I mean, come on.
and with VAR, you never know. Once they start that slow mo,
That changes everything.
everything looks 10 times worse.
Hmm.
Once they start the slow mo, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, just go to YouTube and write slow mo balloon popping. It feels like an atomic bomb. It's a balloon popping, but it looks like an atomic bomb. Um, but what wasn't an atomic bomb was Atletico's attack. And you know, Diego Simeone just went with the tried and tested method, right? Like Abdullah mentioned, sitting neat up back four whatnot, two bags of four in a 4-4-2, trying to hit on the counter. Um, but something that either Diego Simeone misjudged or he was just hoping to scrape something through was that Chelsea aren't a team that attacks directly a lot, or at least they haven't been under Tuchel. They've been very, very tight at the back too. He's literally playing five at the back. It's you know, at one side you got five at the back, the other side you got two bags of four, and the result's not unexpected.
Um, in terms of, I think Atletico's attack, we saw Suarez, you know, um, off the ball, on the ball. His work rate today was decent, I think. He was he was on camera a lot for his shenanigans, but other than that too, like I think, he had an impact. And you could say the same for players. I think even on the right hand side, Correa, he did a job. Who I did not see enough of today, I think, was Felix. Wow, Felix. I
Yeah.
mean, I was expecting him to run the show today, and to be honest, I was left a bit disappointed. I mean, obviously glad, satisfied, very satisfied as a Chelsea fan, but I think as a neutral or like an Atletico fan, you would want to see him more involved. And other than that bicycle kick he had in the first half, I don't think he did anything of significance
Abdullah,
today.
I'm gonna let you have this one, but before you have this one, I just want to like interject something. This is the part where English football fans need to watch La Liga more, because judging players on a few games in Champions League will never help you, or even help you enjoy them.
I lost my train of thought. What was I gonna say? No, I was gonna say you're right. You're right, Omar. Atletico, like if you look at their team, you look at the type of players they have, the likes of Joao Felix, Suarez, Lorente, Saul. They have the technical abilities to play good football, but The problem is Simeone does not want to play that football. He has his, like Abdur said, his tried and tested method of football that he plays in every competition, and it's gotten him this far. Didn't get him to where he wanted to go, which was obviously the the Champions League, which Real Madrid stopped him two times from doing that. But here's the thing: like a player like Joao Felix, I'm not sure if he can actually thrive in a team like Atletico with the style of play they play, because attackers in that system don't receive the ball as much and aren't allowed to flourish and showcase their creativity in that style in that team. So a player like Joao Felix can have moments here and there, but eventually you're not going to see him really boss a game or take over a game and contribute to the extent where you'd say, okay, this guy's to the level of like Haaland or Mbappe in terms of generational talent or a very promising talent. Until he probably leaves Atletico Madrid, you won't see that Joao Felix that he could be. But yeah, Atletico Madrid just disappointed today. The way I watched him today, Suarez was probably the most entertaining part of the game until the Giroud goal. Um, Obviously, as a Barca fan, I don't mind seeing him doing that to other teams. It makes me laugh because how other fans get frustrated when he does that against them. But I'm just sitting here laughing because I know what he's doing. I know what the aim is. I know he's been that type of player, and it has gotten him this far. Again, like it works. It does trigger the defenders. It does annoy the defenders mentally and physically because he's constantly occupying spaces and occupying defenders. So he was quiet today in terms of chances, but he was constantly bothering those defenders. Could have created a chance earlier on for Lemar, but unlucky that he didn't score it. But yeah, like today, disappointing game if you're a neutral. But the Bayern Lazio game had 5 goals in total, and a lot of them were probably in the first half. And as a neutral, you wouldn't want to watch a game for Simeone again, to be honest.
Coming back to Felix for a second, I mean, Atletico, how much did they spend on him exactly?
I think 130
Yeah.
or
So,
something.
okay.
He's one of the most expensive players in the world, yes.
Yeah, I knew it was the number north of 120. I thought at 140. I'm unsure about the number, so I asked. We've seen Atletico play this way under Simeone with strikers like Suarez thriving now. We've seen players like Diego Costa thrive, wingers like Carrasco right now. I mean, unavailable today, of course, but Correa, physical players who love to get in there and do a job. And these are the kind of players that thrive. So if you're the Atletico Madrid coach and the board, or B, if you're Joao Felix, why do you go to Atletico Madrid? You know what style they're gonna play. You know that this isn't where you're gonna thrive. So why even go there? Like, if you think about it, Joao Felix could have gone, let's say, to, a Barcelona or Real Madrid, and that style is a lot more suited to him than Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, you're right about it. And in fact, the idea of getting Joao Felix was to change that one-dimensional play that Simeone and Atletico play. However, at that time, Joao Felix was the only attacker that was, that could have done something. They had Morata for a short while. They had Diego Costa, and both of them were on awful forms, right? However, now that they have Suarez, there have been glimpses in the league, when Atletico have played good, fluent football. I'm not saying they haven't played defensively and packed those bags of four, because they have. That's something that's mentally drilled in them, for their midfielders to come back and defend very tightly. However, in the attacking sense, Atletico have played some of these uh, most efficient yet most swift and continuous football against some teams, which has led them to perhaps a 20 or 30 seconds of good football has led them to a win. So Do you have any more comments on the Chelsea Atletico game?
King Olivier Giroud, I love you.
And I would think that would be in the postscript.
I think Suarez remembered that like he's not playing at home technically, so he thought he was playing away. That's why he might have not scored, because he hasn't scored a goal away. He hasn't scored a goal away in the Champions League
Well,
knockouts since
technically,
2015.
technically, he scored against Bayern, which is it was a
Uh,
neutral venue, but they,
Did that count? Did that
I
record
mean,
end there?
I would say so. That goal deserved it.
True, true, true.
um, yeah. So let's move on to the next game. Well, 5 goals, yet still a bore fest. At least for me, I did not enjoy that match. uh, what's it? I think it was a mix of Bayern's powerhouse, their greatness, and Lazio being a team not good enough for Bayern, and perhaps not good enough today. What are your guys' thoughts?
Before we go into the game's thoughts, I just want to add one point here. We talked about the young English bias going on. Musiala, young Englishman, started for Bayern, scored a goal today. You don't hear much about him in the news because he is actually on the verge of changing nationality to German and playing for the German team.
Oh.
We don't hear that much about him, do we? Compared to the likes of, Sancho or Foden or Hudson-Odoi or whatever. I mean, what do you guys think on that?
Well, in fact, I've never heard of this guy. Today is the first day when Ali mentioned a 17-year-old is starting, and I was like, 17 for who? I thought for Lazio, and then I realized it was for Bayern, and I was like, well, let's see what this guy can do. And all right, he had a decent game, but I I can understand otherwise too why he might not be getting the news. Bayern is star-studded. He's not been an in and out player. He's not been shining such as Sancho. Sancho's been doing really well. He's a starter. He's one of their frequent start 11 players. He's always there on the team sheet on the right wing. So I definitely understand why Sancho is more and more into the news. I believe if Musiala is more linked to English clubs in the future for transfers, uh, he might make more noise as well, and people might want to stay updated with him too.
Going back to how this podcast started, talking about youngsters and the attention they get and the hype. See, this was my exact point with Kamavinga, and let's compare it to Musiala. I feel like if you're 17, you shouldn't be brought up in the news, hyped after every game. You should just be, you're still a teenager. You're not even 18 yet. You're 17. You should just be, let on your own, do your own thing,
Do your
just
homework,
do your homework.
attend
Exactly.
class, get your basic education. I
Get
think that's
those A
very
levels.
important.
And yeah, just do your own thing. I feel as if, the environment that Musiala has, let's just speak about that. He's got some of the best players in the world, like 6 trophy this season for sorry, this calendar year for Bayern. I mean, he's got Lewandowski, Gnabry, Coman, Sane to learn off of, Kimmich right in behind. Um, you don't hear much about him. There's not a lot of pressure being put on him in terms of the hype, the name. That's like the best environment for a kid to thrive in, and I think that's literally perfect.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. A controlled environment where, how much the youngster is exposed to playing time and how patient he or she is in their development, and how patient the club is with them, uh, plays like massive roles, because a lot of the time, usually clubs in the lower section of the league, come unearth a gem which plays, fantastic football, and they are overutilized, and until they run into a series of injuries at 20, 22, 24, and by 27, 28, when they're supposed to hit their prime, unfortunately, they're playing for lower leagues, divisions. And
Are
you've
you
seen,
thinking of a certain
uh,
Arsenal midfielder who had a clinic against Barcelona in that one leg?
it's not only Jack Wilshere. It's a
He was
trend that you've
quality, to
seen
be fair.
so many times. You've seen it. You've seen that so many times. On similar hand, uh, you also get clubs being too patient with players. Just waiting and waiting. Like, okay, perhaps this season he'll be good. And then you get your lone armies, like such as at Chelsea, legends like Lucas Piazon, being the longest serving players for 10 years, and yet
In the
only being
development
28.
squad until 27.
Like, football is a very, very weird world when you look at it that way. There's only so much that you can do. But let's head back to the game a bit. So at least for the 4 goals that Bayern scored, at least 2 of them were very, very avoidable. But let's not get into Bayern scoring 4 goals. That's a day in, day out job. Bayern conceded a goal. Does this show vulnerabilities going forward?
Bayern have always been actually this season that their defense has been arguably their weakest part of their team. So that's why they're signing Upamecano in the summer to fill that gap. So yeah, I mean you can't say that it is worries for Bayern, but Lazio's a tough team. Let's not forget Lazio. Up until the lockdown last year, up until football was put on pause, Lazio was actually competing for the Serie A, and they were actually close to winning it. And until everything came back and the team's quality dropped and the team's form dropped due to fitness issues. So let's not forget who Lazio is. I mean, they're a solid team, and it goes on to show how strong Bayern are. It doesn't matter. They're the type of team to concede 1, 2, 3. They can score 5, 6, 7 past you. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. But yeah, they still managed to win 4-1, and especially it was an away game in Italy, which was a tough game for Bayern. So winning 4-1 away from home, in under these circumstances and securing pretty much their qualification to the next round from now, I would say big success for Bayern. They've done it in good fashion.
Definitely, and it would help them take care of their players more so as well, knowing that they don't have to exert as much energy that they might have to if they were if the goal margin was a lot smaller. Um, do you think Lazio could do a Roma?
Uh, they're in the same city, but no.
That's why I mentioned.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's possible. I think Bayern's already booked their place. And to be fair, I think a lot of people began to already count Bayern out in terms of underestimate them in terms of being favorites. A lot of people talking about Man City now and other clubs, forgetting who the real favorites are, which are obviously Bayern Munich. And today they came back. Today they came back with a
Yeah,
4-1.
definitely. I agree with you. I find the notion absurd. In most situations, the 2 finalists are always have to be like top 3 favorites. It's just a trend that you can see over the years. That in most situations, unless if a team has overreached their maximum potential by doing something like wonderful, like you can talk about Dortmund.
Chelsea under Di Matteo, 12-13
That's
boys,
not
top 3
beautiful. Don't call
favorites.
that beautiful. Don't call that disgusting football beautiful. No, no. Don't tag on Simeone if you love Di Matteo. Come on.
Drogba playing
uh,
left back. I mean, what more do you
Oh,
want?
Simeone.
anyways, so and then we talk about Bayern's squad. They have an insane squad. They've spent so smartly, right? A 40 million here, a 60 million here, and they've slowly stacked their players up. They got like 5 wingers playing it sometimes. Sometimes they have 6 defenders because they want to rest their midfielders. Uh, this club is a machine, and not only that their playing style demands so much energy, but their young players, have that much energy to supply it.
Um, it's crazy that you bring that up because if you think about it, their players, I mean, have they ever made a signing that you could consider a flop
A
compared
bad
to every other
transfer,
team?
right? I
Yeah,
can't think of a bad transfer. Like perhaps
let's
Sule, because he's meh, but he
but
plays. He starts.
yeah, he plays, he starts. The price tag wasn't too ridiculous,
I think it was like 20 or
We
30 million, I believe, right?
Yeah,
It wasn't
I
that much.
mean, if a player does bad or not, lives up to expectations with a price tag like that, it's not that big a flop compared to when you pay a 140 for Coutinho or let's say a
Yeah.
160 for Hazard, and like
I think it also sets up the player like in terms of like a comfortable mentality. Like they're not signed for like 150, 200 million and are expected to bang 50 goals the moment they arrive at the club anymore. Like you're signed for free. We of course we know your quality and we need you to perform, but there's no big expectations in terms of value. And they've to be fair, they like I can't remember a bad signing off the top of my head, but don't go ahead and give them too much credit because let's not forget that every time a talent comes up in the Bundesliga, it's always Bayern snatching them from
And
their
that
hands.
was
And
gonna be
they
my
have.
next point.
Hmm?
I was just gonna ask you, what do you guys think about that? We've seen it time and time again. Um, you know, there was Lewandowski from
wait, Abdurrahman, I'm going to stop you right there. I've just thought of a player who
Götze.
might be considered a bad side. Götze, yes. I
And
was thinking
that
of
is what I was
Götze.
gonna say. That is what I was gonna say. I was like, going to say that, every time a player on the up and up comes around, Bayern just goes knocking him like, "Hey, can we have him?" And happily enough, the other team says yes. It's happened with Lewandowski. It happened with Götze. It happened with Hummels, who did a back and forth.
Do they say can? I don't remember them saying, "Can we have your player?" It's usually,
Give
what's
us your
happening?
players.
It's them trying to be polite. It's the equivalent of asking a teacher to go to the bathroom. You're gonna go to the bathroom, one way or the other. It's just, you know, you,
That's
you
another
just gotta say
debate.
the
Oh,
words.
I really want to
Don't
name
remind
and
me.
shame some teachers right now, but
Oh yeah,
I'll
oh
keep my
yeah, oh
mouth
yeah.
shut.
Oh,
I saw one of those teachers walking with her husband today, by the way. A certain math teacher.
okay, going back to the podcast and not talking about and using analogies as they are, and not taking them literally. And going back to Bayern, and now you see it with Upamecano. Leipzig are second right now. There are title contenders, right? They are probably the only team that can give Bayern a run for their money, even though like deep down inside we expect Bayern to win. We would still like to see a good romantic story with a team like Leipzig and have Bundesliga be lit up with more competition. It's mid-season, right? It's February. It's probably the toughest part of the season coming up, and Bayern just go and they're like, "Up, we've signed the challenging opponents, star center back."
And just to add on to that, that was announced less than a week until like a big Champions League game for Leipzig. I mean, what kind of if you're a Leipzig fan, let's say, and you're going into probably one of the biggest, you're probably your biggest game of the season, but one of the biggest games in your club's history, given that, they're a very new, recently found team. What kind of a message is that for the rest of the players? I mean, they
Yeah,
must be
not only
thinking,
fans,
Upamecano, his head's gone. Like the
not
rest of the
not
players,
not
they're
only
like,
the
is he even going to
fans.
be
What
focusing?
what
Yeah,
about what about Leipzig players?
yeah.
What about the defenders beside Upamecano looking at him and, for example, if Upamecano makes a mistake, uh, you know, the devil will be at work, and the first thought that's gonna come into their mind is like, ah, this guy knows he's going to like a bigger team, and so be it.
I think that's already happened after the Liverpool game. Um, Fans are already criticizing him, saying that he doesn't care anymore. He's already signed the deal with Bayern, so why should he continue playing? And again, it's like it's not exactly similar to the Werner situation where he left them before their Champions League games last season. It's not the same, but it's similar. Like every year at this time, kinda.
It is
A club
similar to
comments
another
on
situation,
which one?
Mario Götze.
I was thinking Mario Götze exactly. Just before the
Bayern,
Champions League final, just
yeah,
before the Champions League final, that got leaked
this is some mind
finally.
games, and
Mm.
it is to be said. I don't know how true this is. It is to be said that Götze went and congratulated his future Bayern teammates after their win. I mean,
Now that you say that, I think it is a mental game being played,
you know,
especially because we're not talking about like Leipzig is 10 points away from Bayern. Like the point gap is just 2 points, and considering that Leipzig could potentially most likely get knocked out by Liverpool, they will have all the time, all the energy, all the resources to focus on that league title. Whereas Bayern will still be in the Champions League, even though Bayern pretty much finished their qualifications in the first leg. But I don't think they're going to be able to do that every single round. So there is a chance that Leipzig could steal the league eventually, and Bayern's form in the league has been shaky. They have lost games to teams that they shouldn't have lost to. They have lost games in the cup as well, so they're not really invincible in the league. So something like this, signing a star player from your direct competitor 6 months before, not 6 months, I'd say 4 months before the season ends, that's definitely mind games. But it just shows that um, some players just don't care. I mean, if I was up in Meccano, if you're gonna stay until the rest of the season, why announce the deal now?
I think the announcing of the deal was more on Bayern's part, and RB Leipzig also criticized Bayern for that. They were like, it's a bit premature to announce it now. It's like mid-season. It is unprofessional in many ways. But then, what do you have to say about the clubs themselves? I cannot imagine, you know, Atletico Madrid just selling Joao Felix to Madrid or Barcelona in the January transfer window or something, or him to be named. If tomorrow news breaks out, oh, Joao Felix has been signed for Madrid. Like that would be insane. I think that would send shockwaves throughout Spain. However, in Germany, it was more of a shrug. They're like, okay.
It's happened before, and it'll happen again. It's as simple as that with Bayern in the Bundesliga. It's happened before with Götze.
They have so sorry to interrupt. They have too much power over the Bundesliga and the German national team as well. Remember the incident when Bayern's who was it? I don't remember the name exactly. Someone
The
managing,
CEO.
yeah,
Carl
he threatened
Hermich.
the German national team if they started Ter Stegen over Neuer at one point when Ter Stegen was clearly the better
Yeah.
performer at that point. So you can see how much like politics and influence Bayern have in that environment. So it's tough. It must be tough for other clubs to compete because there is clubs that can compete if they're allowed to continue to have their players for at least a couple more years. Without Bayern coming in and snatching their biggest player right when they're ripe, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
You
Uh,
think about Dortmund if they had kept Götze, Lewandowski, Hummels, like they could have gone on to do something special. They could have definitely gone on to win a few Bundesliga titles. But here we are.
or at least they could have made Bundesliga a little bit more competitive for a couple more seasons.
Because they
uh,
did win the cup. They did beat Bayern in the Super Cup. They
they
did win
they
the
won
league in that
before
window as
that. They
well.
won the league a couple times too. So this has me thinking now. If teams like Bayern are just crazily dominating Bundesliga, Juventus, not a similar situation with Juventus. They don't necessarily buy all the ripe talent, but they do sometimes. And other times, they have the wealth and power to get it from across Europe. And in Spain, you have Barcelona and the Madrid teams going around all the time and winning the cup and leagues. Uh, sometimes even all the Champions Leagues. So this begs the question: is European Super League the right way to go?
Tricky
Presented to you
question.
by Bartomeu.
No, tricky question. Tricky question. I don't know because that competition would completely make like the UEFA Champions League useless, to be honest, if that competition came true. But UEFA Super League, I don't know. Eh,
And the scary thing is, many of the big clubs, the so-called big clubs in the world, have backed it. United, Liverpool, Barca.
I mean, even Tottenham have backed it. But
some big clubs.
so I don't know. All the traditional top six, or so-called traditional top six, in Premier League, Juve, Milan, both Milan teams, um, Dortmund, Leipzig, Bayern, Atletico, Barca, Madrid. I believe so. If I'm wrong, then forgive me. But I think these are the teams that are going through.
I mean, how much of it comes down to the fact that they want to play in the competition, or is it more about the revenue stream that they're going to get from that competition? Because
It's
most,
less effort for more money.
Mhm.
They will play many fewer games, and they will get much more money.
They will play less games and
And
they
I
get a lot
believe
more
I
money.
believe this is
That's
to um, replace, or somewhat replace, the league format, and the Champions League will sustain because Champions League is very profitable for all parties.
So what they're suggesting to like add this European Super League with the Champions League and remove what exactly?
Well, it's to
remove.
divide the leagues, the local leagues, to either be in smaller competitions. For example, there was a lot of move in English football to reduce the top flight to 18 teams, as it is in Bundesliga, right? That in its own is a whole different conversation. You know, all like Bayern and stuff play 36 games, all the other teams play 38 games. That's like 2 weeks rest, extra rest that they get. Um, in English football, there were talks to reduce it to 18 teams. In Spanish football, there's been talks to reduce the top flight to 18 or even 15 teams. So basically dividing Division 1 and Division 2 into 3 divisions.
I mean, I don't know about the Spanish league, but I mean, for the English league, why don't you just get rid of the Mickey Mouse Cup? Eliminates the
uh,
games right there.
The Mickey
that's
Mouse Cup
just
is important.
useless.
Just because Chelsea don't win it.
Hey, we won it under Mourinho, okay?
No, that cup should be named the Manchester City Cup nowadays.
Honestly.
More likely the Pep Guardiola Cup.
Yeah,
I feel like, he probably drinks coffee out of it by this stage.
Do you guys think Mourinho can win it against Pep this year?
I think we should have that conversation on a different episode. It is late, and it has been great. Thank you so much to all of our speakers. Umar Amin in blue in the Chelsea kit. Abdullah Khattab with the afro and glasses, and I was somewhat of your host, co-host slash speaker, Abdul Rehman. And well, like always, if you liked what you heard, give us a like. Let us know what we said wrong. Let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. Don't never forget to subscribe. And well, until next time, we'll catch you in the next half.